Good evening, everyone. My name's Donna Spangler, and I'm the Department Coordinator for Instructional Coaches here at Derry Township. This evening, several of us have been invited to share a global overview with the board regarding instructionally where we are and where we're going. The pandemic has introduced a lot of uncertainty to schools, and because none of us have ever experienced schooling in a pandemic environment, unfortunately, there's no playbook for this scenario. In fact, to use a sports analogy, we are still in the midst of the game with the pandemic. The game's not over, so no one really knows what the final outcome or final score may be. But we do know a few things. First, we know that we cannot wait till the end of the pandemic in order to act. Second, we know that the learning that students are going to lose is going to vary significantly according to things like access to remote learning, the quality of instruction, home support by parents, and the degree of student effort and engagement. Third, we know that learning challenges after a crisis can be different. For example, there is learning loss versus learning lag. Learning loss results in academic holes that can only be filled by significant effort and time. Learning lag, on the other hand, results in academic holes that can be filled with small adjustments and far more quickly. And with any crisis, there's also an element of trauma coupled with mental health needs. Things that we can see when we look at other crises. While the media projected a huge learning loss after Hurricane Katrina, what actually occurred was learning lag, and the actual effect on student achievement was not as great as many had expected. The Christchurch earthquakes resulted, of course, in a rush to online learning. However, no significant effects were identified at upper school levels because teachers focused on triaging learning for students. Today's presentation goals are twofold. First, to share an overview of how we're monitoring, discussing, and intervening this school year. And second, to share how we're planning to adjust future learning needs from this year. In this presentation, we'll all be speaking to different tiers of support that we provide through the Mtss Framework at all levels. Mtss, or Multi-Tiered System of Supports, is a framework that schools use to provide targeted support to struggling students. MTSS supports academic growth and achievement, but it also supports behavior and social and emotional needs. And the overall goal of MTSS is to intervene early. In MTSS, basically, there's three tiers. The first tier, which is kind of like the whole class, all students receive core instruction and core management based on research practices. In Tier 2, students who do not achieve or who are projected not to achieve benchmark performance receive targeted interventions in small groups while they continue to participate fully in Tier 1 core instruction. In Tier 3, which is more of the intensive individual support, diagnostic assessments are used to pinpoint specific skill deficiencies and to plan for more incisive interventions. Students, however, at this level still do continue to participate fully in Tier 1 core instruction. And special education services can occur at any tier, 1, 2, and 3. In our next section, Katie is going to continue by talking about social emotional learning.
Hi everyone, this is Katie Weaver, Social Emotional Learning Coach at the middle school. We all know this has been a year like no other. Some of our newer interventions that had been put into place last school year have had to be put on hold, and new ideas have been tried in an attempt to reach all of our students in various service delivery modalities. Our intervention process this year starts with our student support team meetings that are held regularly with building administrators, the school social worker, school psychologists, nurses, school counselors, and the social emotional learning coach at the middle school level. Struggling students are identified using a variety of factors, including teacher concerns, attendance, grades, work completion, class participation, and social interaction. From there, we hold meetings to develop plans for each student to support them in their area of need. This has included regular communication with families, student attendance improvement plans, home visits, focused homeroom, virtual office hours with student support staff, individual counseling and supports, and referrals to our Hershey intervention program based on a variety of needs, including withdrawal, depression, anxiety, and executive functioning. The Student Services landing page was revised in the fall specifically to make it easy for students and families to find necessary resources. This page is accessible from the district website as well as individual building pages. In the beginning of this school year, significant time was dedicated to providing instruction in the area of self-regulation to address the stress and trauma related to school closure. This helped students to develop healthy coping skills and was delivered by classroom teachers K through 12 through the use of SET and Bounce Back. We really expect students to be rusty next year. At the Tier 1 level, we plan to provide a version of SET and Bounce Back Lite to reinforce the skills that have been taught K through 12. In an effort to be proactive, lessons will be designed and implemented in order to rebuild executive functioning skills. We will be intentionally reorienting students who will be back in school full-time by teaching and reinforcing behavioral expectations, academic expectations, daily routines, and healthy habits. Next year, morning meetings will be held daily K through 8. This gives teachers additional opportunities for relationship and skill building. We recognize the nature of this school year presents unique challenges for our students transitioning from building to building. Significant planning has gone into the creation of virtual transition presentations for grades 5 to 6 and 8 to 9. These presentations are facilitated by teachers and led by students. As you may or may not know, all counselors K through 12 loop with our students, which helps with the transition process and relationship building. We are looking forward to the social, emotional, and behavioral features that Synergy offers. This will allow us to more efficiently identify and support all students. Finally, we are moving forward with our learning and planning for the implementation of social emotional learning K through 12. Year 1 of a 5 to 7 year plan, 2021 to 22 school year, will have a strong focus on adult SEL. Professional learning will prioritize building foundational knowledge of the CASEL competencies with staff and will include practice opportunities for skill building to support emotional well-being in order to best support our students. Our district goal is to implement K through 12 structures and supports that promote social emotional learning and equity for all community members. Next, you will be hearing from my elementary colleagues.
I'm Crystal Pakovich, the 3rd through 5th grade instructional literacy coach. I'm discussing how we monitor and intervene with students this year at the elementary level. We collect 2 types of data, then intervene with helping students learn by utilizing interventions and adjusting instruction. All students K through 5 are assessed 3 times a year using math and reading benchmark assessments. These assessments are indicators that help identify children at risk in reading or math. Additional diagnostic assessments are only for students who don't meet benchmark to determine the skills to target for instructional support. Progress monitoring is a weekly process to monitor students' progress toward instructional objectives who weren't at benchmark. Lesson and skill assessments are for all students and are typically given after specific skills are taught to determine if skills were learned or not. Next, Chris Leonzo will talk about what we do with the data.
I'm Christine Leonzo, the K2 Instructional Literacy Coach. We're going to talk about what we do with the data now that it has been collected. Once the data is collected, we meet as a team to review the results. This data helps us to determine which students to recommend for intervention and if we need to add intervention, more intensive instruction, or perhaps even exit a student from intervention. From that meeting, we use that information when we meet as an IPM team. This intervention planning meeting focuses on the whole child. The classroom teacher is an essential part of this team and brings any concerns to the table that they have about their students in the areas of math, reading, social emotional well-being, attendance, attention, and behavior. The purpose of this meeting is to ensure that all students are receiving the supports that they need to be a successful student. Both types of meetings meet 4 times a year so that we are constantly revisiting the supports that are in place for all of our students. Next, we're going to talk about what plans we have for next year.
Hi everyone, my name is Mindy Smith and I am an instructional coach for grades K through 3 with a focus in math. We are working really hard to continuously monitor the growth of our students and will continue to do so in preparation for next school year. By gathering performance data from benchmark and local assessments, instructional decisions will be made, ensuring that all students have the opportunity to master essential learning standards. Progress monitoring of our struggling students will allow us to quickly adjust our instruction for continuous flow of progress. Data review meetings will allow us to discuss progress of students, and whole child intervention planning meetings will allow our teams to work together to put supports in place to make sure all of our students are successful. Our professional learning communities ensure equity for all students through discussions of standards, common assessments, and instruction. Our multi-tiered system of support will continue to provide different levels of reading and math intervention based on individual student needs. Additionally, daily reading and math differentiation will occur across all grade levels for all students. Next, Dave Yanks is going to share what's going on now and how the middle school is preparing for next year.
Good evening, everyone. I am Dave Yanks. I'm an instructional math coach for grades 4 through 8, but this evening I'm specifically going to be addressing what is going on at the middle school with the same 2 questions that my elementary colleagues just spoke about. So let's get right into it. Let's take a look at what's happening this year. As was mentioned earlier in the presentation by Mrs. Weaver, support team meetings are being held regularly, and that is helping to address student needs that are occurring with guidance counselors and the SEL coach, as well as a cross-curricular team of teachers. PLCs are a major way that we are addressing this year's students and how we're dealing with the pandemic. These PLCs, or professional learning communities, are the same grade, same subject teachers that meet regularly multiple times a week so that they can deal with questions that are arising dealing with curriculum and what type of assessments we're using and how we're using the results of those assessments to help us make instructional decisions as the year moves on. Of course, there's a lot of individual teacher work that's happening too. Teachers regularly have open office hours for the students to come in and get help. There's actually personal invitations that teachers have been making to provide students with additional support. And of course, during our study hall time, which at the middle school we call flex, students can come in or be offered or asked to come in for additional assistance to fill areas where they're struggling or gaps that they may have. Throughout all of this, there is a regular collaboration going on between the coaches, the classroom teachers, the PLCs, the administration. Things such as a bi-monthly newsletter that we have where teacher-to-teacher collaboration has been happening so we can leverage that expertise that teachers have and what they're learning as we go through this pandemic period. And the coaches are working with PLCs and individual teachers to help present new ideas and facilitate that sharing, as well throughout all of this, working with administration to make this most difficult and fluid situation as manageable and meaningful as possible. So what's going to go on for next year, and what will that look like for next year? Well, there's always the transitioning that goes on between grades 5 and 6. Of course, that will have great meaning this year as well, and that will involve looking at math scores as well as reading scores. That information will be shared with teachers, as well as the guidance counselors from the elementary do share things with the guidance counselors at the middle school to then go on to the teams and present that information to the teams about students who have special needs and whatnot. There's going to be a remediation time built into the schedule next year that can be used for intervention as well. PLCs are going to be extremely important. That's going to be a time where those teachers from that subject area are going to know where kids are and where they need to get to, and what are effective ways that we can use and modify the curriculum, the instruction, and differentiate for the needs of the kids. Teachers over the coming weeks are going to be designing tests in the core level classes to gather end of year data on students, and that information will be passed on to next year's instructors so that meaningful decisions can be made about gaps or what things need to be covered more in depth. To go along with that, there's going to be a teacher-to-teacher communication device that we're going to provide for the instructors to fill out so that we know what level of instruction was provided and to what depth was that provided for certain topics, concepts, and skills. And that will help teachers in the coming year know where there might be gaps so that can further discussions to help the students. So thank you for your time, and now I'm going to pass it on to our high school colleagues who are going to talk about what is going on at Hershey High School.
Hi, my name is Brendan Hensel. I am a high school counselor and a department chair. At the high school, departments are continuously assessing students for understanding of core content and concepts. The collection of data happens through formative and summative assessments. After capturing student understanding, teachers use their weekly PLC meetings, Wednesday department time, and regularly scheduled preparation period time to update, adjust, and target content and materials based on needs. The goal is to provide support and accommodate student learning in real time on a regular basis. We will apply this same approach next year to again ensure they have mastered content. Beyond the classroom, both teachers and counselors have virtual office hours that allow for students to ask questions and be tutored. HHS provides free peer-to-peer tutoring through the National Honor Society. The Trojan Center is also available for students that may need help with organization, structure, and individual support. A valuable piece of our student support system, very much like National Honor Society and its peer-to-peer framework, is Link Crew. Link Crew members assist students as mentors, while homeroom teachers check in daily with students. Hershey Intervention and Prevention continues to be used to meet student needs for mental health, academic concerns, and drug and alcohol use. Student Services also meets on a regular basis to create plans to help students based on attendance, behavior, and social-emotional needs. Through assessment, data, and reflection, we will continue to learn, grow, and adapt for next year. Some of the goals for next year include providing more daily flexibility so students have opportunities for learning and individual support through the construction of the master schedule, continuing to conduct weekly data meetings for special education students and PLC time for teachers. Another goal is to expand the Trojan Center and a National Honor Society tutoring. Lastly, we would like to host teacher talks and student council meetings to address student concerns and hear from students on how we can best support them as a high school. Next is Kristen with our closing.
Good evening. My name is Kristen Maneri, and I'm the instructional technology coach for the district. Many have said that 2020 has reminded us of the important life lessons. One of these powerful life lessons is practicing gratitude. For just a moment, stop and think. Without the technology, so much of what we've accomplished would have never been possible. We are all incredibly grateful to be in a district that has provided us with the resources to be able to quickly redistribute devices to ensure equal access for all of our students, K-12. While this was not originally in our plans, we were able to provide one-to-one technology to support teaching and learning for all of our students from the start of the pandemic last March to the present. Next, we want to extend our gratitude to our administration and school board for all the leadership and support that you have provided during the COVID-19 pandemic. We want to thank our DTSD faculty and support staff who pulled together to help students, families, and each other. We want to thank all of the staff for coordinating and rethinking how we do business, from lesson planning to food service, to technology, to building maintenance, bus drivers, and operations. Thank you to all the families for your flexibility while also taking on the additional role as another teacher to support your child over this past year. We know it hasn't been easy. The times we are experiencing now will be the subject of history, economics, and social lessons for generations to come. The work we are doing today is groundbreaking, and it will continue to be. What past crises have shown us is this: what DTSD staff and teachers are doing now matters. In our hybrid and virtual environments, we are triaging learning and leveraging MTSS supports in the midst of our current crisis. We cannot extend our gratitude enough for our teachers' resilience to always put our students first. Most importantly, while we try to teach our children all about life, our children teach us what life is all about. So let's remember, we're all in this together.